I'm Jason Barone. Today's talk, it's actually a two-part talk, and the first part's going to be on content marketing. So content marketing for growth starts with your platform. That's going to be by me. For context, a little bit about me. So I'm a design engineer at Uber, which is basically a front-end engineer who also knows how to design. So I work closely with our product design teams, and we support Uber.com and our publishing platforms that power Uber.com and some of our public-facing web properties. And my job is to basically try to build cool stuff on the web, essentially. So it's a work in progress. It's kind of a new position for our team, so it's super exciting, but it's a lot of cool stuff's on the way for Uber.com. Definitely check it out if you haven't, and give me your feedback, because I'd love to know what you think of it. So this talk is about essentially growth marketing, or this buzzword, growth hacking, growth marketing. If you go to LinkedIn and search for growth marketing, you're going to get something like 3.2 million results on growth marketing. What does this word actually mean? Because there's a lot of people who are growth marketing people or growth marketing managers. In fact, if you search growth marketing at Uber, you're going to get 4,100 results, which is crazy because some people I talk to don't even know that we have over 4,000 employees. We have way more. But this is a lot of people doing growth marketing. And Wikipedia, they define growth hacking as the process of rapid experimentation across marketing channels and product development to identify the most efficient ways to grow a business. Basically, what this means is it's marketing. I mean, that's essentially what it is. Anything could pretty much be considered marketing. Oh yeah, this is pretty funny. So like, this is like the people on the corner that do jujitsu and spin signs. Like, technically, that's growth marketing if you wanted to define it that way. And basically, I want to just focus on one part of growth marketing, or one part of marketing, which is web content marketing and doing content right on the web. What does that actually mean? Well, I define it as publishing unique and engaging content on the web at scale, and it achieves a marketing objective of some sort, or multiple marketing objectives. Now, that's kind of a mouthful, so let's just break it down. So the first part of that, publishing on the web. Most of you have probably seen or used maybe at least one of these, Medium, WordPress, Squarespace. They're sort of the common platforms to publish content on the web. Medium sort of started as a blogging platform, well, so did WordPress. But right now, you can publish content on the web. You can just register an account with any of these. Squarespace is paid, but you can publish content on the web. Amazing. The second part of that is unique and engaging content. So a key part of this is doing content that actually looks great, not just a blog, not just text. So here's 3 examples. I'm sure you guys have been on at least one of these pages or one of these websites, which is Apple, New York Times, and Stripe, some of my favorite sites. And what's interesting about these is with Apple in particular, every time they launch a new product, they build a single scrolling landing page. It usually has a pretty engaging experience. Like, if you check out the new iMac Pro page, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. In fact, New York Times does a similar type of thing where they create these long-form stories that are just super engaging. It's nothing like a standard web template. It's usually built specifically for whatever they're trying to tell a story about. But it works really well, and it's built into their platform and allows them to do that. And Stripe, which is relatively unknown outside of the startup community, but they're doing some amazing stuff on their website as well. So every time they launch a new product page, they basically create a completely unique experience. So I urge everyone to check out stripe.com and kind of see what they're up to. What this means is, when I say unique, engaging content, so a lot of websites and a lot of companies who build content on the web, they don't think about unique, engaging content. They're just kind of thinking, how do I get content out there? Whether let me put a blog post out there. Let me just post one page or a service page or whatever. This is really the game, unique and engaging content. So the other part, at scale. When we're talking about growth, the game is doing repetitive content on the web. Doing kind of one blog post per month and just letting it go is not going to cut it. You need to do a lot of content and a lot of quality content. It kind of gets into this templated content territory where you're creating a template for a specific type of content or a specific type of page, and you're doing that over and over again. So this example here, I actually talked about this on my last meetup, which was how Airbnb is crushing organic search results, and we kind of focused in on the neighborhood guides feature on Airbnb. And you can actually get this if you just go to Google and search for Airbnb Lower East Side, and this page will come up. In fact, they actually rank if you just type Lower East Side, which is the key part here. So Airbnb is essentially creating these guides that have all kinds of information related to specific neighborhoods that they want to cover. I think at this point they're probably trying to do all neighborhoods, but Airbnb is not going to just post this one Lower East Side page and just be done with it. The game is they want to essentially do this for every neighborhood that they support, or every neighborhood that exists in the cities they support. So they want to kind of set up something with their platform where they can do this over and over again, and that's really the game when we say at scale, and we're talking about growth marketing. So the last part, achieves marketing objectives. So this is pretty straightforward. It's going to be dependent upon your business. So everyone's objective is going to be different. Some people are going to be focused on sign up. Some are going to be subscribers, brand sentiment, whatever it may be. It needs to be something about your business. I guess where I'm getting at here is with regards to web content marketing, publishing unique, engaging content on the web at scale that achieves web marketing objectives. This combined is what is essentially your platform. So the name of this talk, Content Marketing for Growth. The platform is essentially that entire process, which we're just going to really quickly fly through what is involved in that platform. So I think it's 3 parts, and excuse my kind of like simple glyphs to kind of describe this stuff. I just like these shapes. I think they're a little simple, but basically I say it's people, process, product. It's the 3 Ps. In other words, it's your team, your documentation, and the website. So that's what we're calling the product in the context of web content marketing. Again, people, process, product. So let's talk about people. So I don't know if anyone here follows Gary Vaynerchuk. He's one of my favorites. He's an author, social media guy, big in the tech and startup industry. So he has a great quote that I love, which is, content's king, but marketing is queen, and she runs the household. Which essentially means, content is king, but you still have to know about marketing, or you still have to implement some sort of a marketing plan, because that's really the game. But I would argue that your content strategist is your king. If anyone is going to be developing some sort of a content marketing plan, you're going to need a content strategist. I think it all starts with that person. And what can they do for you, and why would I say that? Well, mainly it's because a content strategist has a lot of disciplines which are super useful to really building out a content strategy or a content marketing plan. So they're going to be fluent in SEO. They're going to know how to write, usually, or tell a story, which is super useful, obviously. They're going to know about information architecture, which is major when you're dealing with the web. And in some cases, they even know a bit about design and development. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll be designing templates or engineering and building your platform, but they usually speak pretty fluently, and they can communicate with designers and engineers, which is huge, and that's really a game changer. So I challenge you, if you interview a really good content strategist, you probably want to hire them. So what is their process? Usually, and I'm kind of skipping some of the parts here, but bear with me. I mean, most of this, it covers kind of the basis of a content strategist process, and if there's any content strategists in the room, feel free to mention it during Q&A. But research and analysis. So the first part of this is your content strategist is going to really just research. If they've joined your company, they're going to know all about your company. They're going to learn about your company. They're going to learn about your competitors. They're going to compare what you're already doing if it's an existing business. Then they're going to look at like keyword analysis. They're going to look at what's working on the web, modern trends. Essentially, they're just making a case, and they're building information because they're going to deliver what's essentially a site map or an information or an architecture for the website itself. So literally, they'll be able to come to you and say, this is what we should do on the web, and it's going to be attached to some sort of a strategy for how we should actually get there. And that's super useful. So the content strategist can do this normally. In terms of strategy and governance, which is that last piece there, that really just deals with the plan that the strategist comes up with. How are we actually implementing it? Like, in terms of a strategy, if we want to do neighborhood guides and we want to compete with Airbnb, what is the strategy behind that content? Where does it come from? Are we going to hire an army of writers to create it? Are we going to integrate with existing data? Are we going to buy data from Yelp and integrate it? So really the strategy should cover some of those ideas. But again, it's really going to be a work in progress, and it's going to be a collaboration with your team depending on the team size. And what all of this is really doing, it's building the product requirements. All of this leads to product requirements, because if we want to do this, we're going to have a product that allows you to do it. Assuming it doesn't exist already, and this is something new, it's going to basically be just a product requirements document. Multiple people are going to collaborate on it. The content strategist is probably going to talk with your designer or your engineer. And if you don't have those, well, there's probably people they will talk to, or maybe there's agencies that you can consult with. But it all leads to product requirements because we need to build a product. But before we talk about the product, let's talk about process. So process, I don't know where this quote came from. I might have made it up. That's why it's not that good. But strategy defines processes and iteration refines them, basically. What that means is this process of figuring out the strategy, that's really just going to define the process for how you manage this product moving forward. And when you start building the product, that's going to further just refine everything you're doing. When the product development process starts, it's going to be, again, a collaboration back and forth. And the process in terms of managing these things moving forward is going to change and it's going to iterate. To give you some examples of that, so this page might be hard to read that, but that's a design system released by Airbnb on their website. So Airbnb.design is Airbnb's like open source design site, and they put a lot of cool stuff in terms of how they work, how they design stuff, and I'm sure their internal systems are even better and even more clear. But basically, this gives the designer or a new designer everything they need to just get right into the company and start building stuff. It's really just documentation and processes for how to build for Airbnb. I'm sure their onboarding process is probably pretty seamless because they have this information. And MailChimp is another example. So MailChimp actually wrote their comms style guide and posted it online where everybody can see it. So this is actually for their employees, but they just put it on a website so that anybody can use it. And this would be a style guide. So this is a process for how to write content on MailChimp's internal tools or whatever it is. Or if they're sending out email, this would be the guide that those writers or comms people need to follow. And it's pretty awesome because this stuff is out there, and if you're starting a company or if you have a company and you want to get some of these processes in place, you can literally just copy from some of the best companies in the world, which is pretty amazing. This is probably a little hard to see as well, but this is just a GitHub README for Airbnb's JavaScript style guide. So in terms of process for engineering or development, you want to make sure that your developers, your engineers are documenting this stuff as they're building it. This way, when you onboard engineers or you onboard contractors, there's processes in place. There's documentation for how to actually work on this stuff that you're building. And the reason a lot of these processes aren't done is mainly because of laziness. It's just because the company hasn't told their employees to do it, or the designer, the developer, it just doesn't do it. So it would be a good, a good bet to, as part of this process, this product development process, ensure that these people are actually documenting what you're doing, and that just kind of builds out your process for you. I feel the process is one of the easiest parts here. So going back to product, this is the last part. So jumping back to the beginning of this talk, I mentioned with regards to content marketing, this aspect of it's publishing on the web. And I mentioned a couple platforms, Medium, WordPress, Squarespace. So most people would say, oh, great, so these products already exist. I'm golden. I can go execute this amazing project that my content strategist came up with. But in fact, that's not the case. So you could do a pretty good job on Medium or WordPress or Squarespace. I've used all of these for quite some time. And it just gets to the point where you push these platforms just further than they can go, and there's really no more that you can do with the platforms. I experienced this quite a few times with clients. So again, with regards to content marketing, it's the entire thing. We want to know what platform can allow us to publish unique, engaging content at scale that achieves marketing objectives. I would argue that a lot of these platforms will just fall short, and you wouldn't want to use them. Now, that's not a slam to these platforms because most of them are great, but if you're trying to execute some sort of big idea like compete with Airbnb or compete with Compass, the real estate brokerage, you're going to have to do it on a better platform. So most people would say, okay, great, so what is that platform? I can tell you what we've done at Uber. So Uber actually has a blog post. I'd love for you guys to check it out. It's at eng.uber.com/chameleon. So one of our engineers wrote this post, which talks about our global CMS. So we ran into this scenario where platforms just wouldn't get us there, and the team just built an entirely custom CMS called Chameleon, and it serves most of Uber.com, and it allows our publishers all over the world to publish content very quickly on Uber.com and localize the content, translate it, all that stuff. And it's working really well. Now, I know that doesn't really help anyone who's not in the position that Uber's in. So what would you do in that scenario? Well, that was mainly the reason for this talk is I actually feel like headless CMS platforms are the future here. So headless CMS platforms, most of you are familiar with WordPress, Squarespace, some of these CMS platforms that have the entire UI ready for you. You can just grab it off the shelf, grab a template, and you're good to go. There's kind of this new breed of CMS platforms that are API driven. And the most popular one in my that I favor is Contentful. So, and their HQ is right here at Heavybit, or their SF HQ. And they're just the one that I favor because I feel like they're the top of the game right now. And what this allows you to do, I like to refer to it, and maybe the Contentful guys might not like me saying this about it, but I like to refer to it as the enterprise CMS building blocks. Like literally, it's everything you need to build an enterprise CMS for your company, and they provide all the building blocks, all the APIs you need, and you can just kind of plug into whatever front end that you want to build. So what does that mean? It's hard to see in this photo, or this screen capture, but on the far left, basically what Contentful gives you is a UI to input content with all different types of field types, all different types of features built right in, and you can put content in and get it out with an API, and then you can build a front end that just pulls that content. So it essentially allows you to create whatever type of website you want using whatever type of structure that you want. And I think this is pretty game-changing because most platforms just don't support this. So when we start talking about and going back to things we mentioned in the previous part of this presentation, like when your content strategist is talking about your sitemap and your architecture, well, it just so happens Contentful allows you to do all of that right out of the box. You can set up the architecture of content. They call them content models, and you can basically just build out that architecture and build your entire site architecture right in the UI and then connect to it with an API, which is pretty unprecedented. In terms of strategy and governance, one of the most amazing features I like about it is how you can really get granular on the permission system. So if you have tons of different types of content, but you want specific teams editing that content, you can do that right out of the box. This is something we had to build into our CMS at Uber, but it's already there in Contentful. And the last part, product requirements. So because it's an API-driven CMS, it's a headless CMS, usually you don't run into the roadblocks that you will run into with other platforms. This is something I hit with Squarespace, where Squarespace didn't have an API where you could connect to it, so we just couldn't do anything more with Squarespace, and it was really it was actually hurting the business to the point where we need something different, we need something new. Contentful, again, has that right out of the box. So basically, where I'm getting at, in terms of product, Contentful is definitely the solution moving forward. I kind of feel like going through the trial and error of really like trying all these platforms and seeing what works, I'm kind of glad that now there's this solution, an API-driven CMS, where you can really just do whatever you want. And the cool thing is you can also build a CMS to do whatever you want. Feels like a total Contentful sales pitch, but I urge you to try it out because it really will save you a ton of time. And that's pretty much it. Basically, it all comes down to the API. So looking at something like WordPress, WordPress has a robust API. You could probably do a ton with it. So WordPress might not be categorized the same with other platforms, but with regards to Squarespace, which is something I've worked with forever, we just literally couldn't get data in or out of the product. So it was one of those things where the CMS that they defined as a product just wouldn't work for certain types of projects. So it kind of, you just had this sort of narrow spectrum of sites or projects that it would work for, and if you go outside of that, it just falls apart. So that was something I experimented with a lot, was trying to push the boundaries and see what you can do, but we just didn't have the features to do it. So in the future, when the client would come back and say, hey, we want to do this, this, and this, we'd say, oh, well, they don't support that, so we have to start thinking about migrating to something else. Like I said, I think it's just fundamentally some of these platforms aren't designed to do very sophisticated enterprise level things, and it really took headless CMSs to sort of break that barrier. And that's why I mentioned Contentful so much, because I feel like they're just at the top of the game when it comes to the headless CMS like group of products. And that is it.